All right, let's get right into it. We're going to explore the core message of the Quran today, but we're doing it with a really unique approach. Based on our source material, we're going to try to set aside centuries of commentary and just see what happens when the text is allowed to explain itself. For this analysis, we're looking at it almost like an operating system, a kind of blueprint for a just and conscious life. So that leads us to this really big question. What if you read the Quran as a totally self-contained system? The source for this explainer did exactly that. They took on the challenge of letting the book's own internal logic, its own repeated ideas, reveal what its main message truly is. Now, there's actually a formal name for this approach. It's called hermeneutics. It's a really rigorous way of analyzing a text by tracing how words and concepts connect to each other throughout the entire book. So instead of bringing in outside opinions, you build the picture from the inside out. This is the exact method our source used to identify the 8 key themes we're about to walk through. So, once you apply that process, what's the first thing that jumps out? Well, it leads you to the most fundamental theme of all. And this isn't just one idea among many. Our source identifies this as the absolute cornerstone of the entire system, divine unity. That concept is called Tawhid. And if we stick with our operating system analogy, Tawhid is the kernel. It is the core, non-negotiable axiom that every other function, every single command in the system flows from. You could think of it as the central processing unit for this whole framework. And this is not some subtle interpretation, The text is incredibly direct about this. Verses just like these pop up all over the Quran, hammering home this principle of a single, unified source for reality, for law, and for guidance. It is the absolute starting point for everything else. Okay, but what does this abstract idea actually mean for your daily life? Well, if there's only one ultimate standard, your decision-making gets a whole lot simpler. You're suddenly free from the stress of trying to please all these different deities in your life, whether that's your boss, social status, or the latest trends. Your work life and your personal life, they're not separate boxes anymore. They merge under one single ethical framework. And it's a really powerful stance against tribalism and blindly following any single human leader. So, if Tawhid is the foundation, how do you actually build on top of it? Well, the next layer in the system is what we can call the principles for action. These aren't just suggestions, they are the direct results of that core belief. And that's the logical next question, right? How does believing in one ultimate source actually guide what we do day to day? According to the text itself, it lays out a really clear and logical path forward. So this flow of action, it starts with accountability, this deep realization that every single thing you do has a consequence. That naturally leads you to step 2, which is responsibility. You accept your own power to choose your actions wisely. And what's the ultimate application of that choice? Step 3, social justice, or qiyast. Taking this entire framework and using it to build a fair and just society for everyone. And we have to talk about qist, because this is a huge theme. It's not just about, being a nice person or giving to charity. It's about actively building equity and fairness into the very structures of society. It's framed as a non-negotiable outcome of true belief. I mean, the language here is just so powerful. It doesn't just say be just, it says be standing firm with justice. That implies this constant, active, unwavering effort. It's a verb, an action, not just some passive feeling. And the verse goes on to say you have to do this even if it goes against yourself or your parents or your closest relatives. And this principle absolutely demands real-world application. It means we should be designing economic systems where wealth actually circulates to help the community, instead of just concentrating at the very top. It calls for things like fair wages and transparent contracts, and it requires active intervention. You can't just see something wrong and look the other way. Okay, so foundation, check. Principles for action, check. But how do we actually get better at all of this? The next layer of this operating system gives us the tools for both personal and societal growth. The first tool is knowledge. The Qur'an constantly draws this bright, bold line between those who think, reflect, and seek knowledge, and those who just don't. The pursuit of science, of critical thinking, of observing the world, these are framed as core spiritual acts. They're essential for understanding how the world works, so that you can make just decisions within it. The second tool is understanding history. The Qur'an constantly tells people to go look at the ruins of past civilizations, not as a history lesson, but as a data set. It reveals these predictable patterns, what the text calls Sunnah Allah, which is kind of like the established ways of God or the laws of nature in human society. And the cause and effect is crystal clear.
Societies that value justice and knowledge, they flourish. But societies that become arrogant, corrupt, and oppressive, they inevitably collapse. And both of these tools, knowledge and history, they serve one ultimate purpose: transformation. The Quran uses this powerful metaphor over and over again of being brought out of deep darkness and into pure light. And this isn't a one-time event. It's a continuous process of growth. It's about individuals using these tools to better themselves, and about entire societies consciously moving away from injustice and confusion and toward clarity and fairness.
So, let's put all the pieces together. How does this all integrate? Because these themes aren't just a random checklist. They are deeply connected. And there's one final principle that makes sure the whole system runs smoothly and sustainably.
That principle is called Wasatiyyah, or balance. You can think of it as the system's main regulator, the thing that prevents the whole program from crashing because of extremes. And it applies to everything. In your finances, don't be a miser, but don't be extravagant. In government, find that path between tyranny and total chaos. And in your own life, avoid both extreme self-denial and unchecked hedonism. It's the core idea that keeps the whole system stable and effective for the long run.
So there you have it. When you step back, you see it. 8 distinct themes that aren't separate rules at all. They are essential, interconnected parts of one single, cohesive system for life. So let's just quickly recap this integrated system. Tawhid is the foundation, the framework. Accountability is what motivates you to act. Responsibility is what empowers you as an individual. Social justice is how you apply it to society. Knowledge and history are your tools for getting it right. Transformation is the entire process of growth. And balance is the principle that keeps the whole thing sustainable. It's a complete, integrated guide. Which leaves us with a final, big thought to chew on. The source for this analysis argues that this whole system isn't just about being a good person. It's a comprehensive blueprint for building a functional, a conscious, and a just civilization. So the real question for us to reflect on is, when you look at all the challenges we're facing today, what could we actually build with a blueprint like this?